Foreign Minister, is that right? Are we at the end of the road?
Leigh, good evening. Good to be with you. I fear that the families and friends and lawyers of Mr Chan and Mr Sukumaran have made their last visit to them, short of a last-minute intervention by President Widodo. I fear the very worst for our citizens. We've not yet been officially informed by the Indonesian government as to the timing of the proposed executions, but given all that we've seen today via the Indonesian media, I have to assume that the Indonesian government is determined to proceed with executing these two Australian citizens, notwithstanding the fact that there is still a legal proceeding underway in the Constitutional Court and that there are still Judicial Commission hearings into the bribery allegations relating to the original trial. So short of an intervention from the President, I fear that this execution will proceed.
What contact have you or the Prime Minister had today with your Indonesian counterparts, if any?
Today, the embassy in Indonesia has been making representations. I've been in contact with our ambassador. The ambassador has been seeing whomever he can at the highest levels. Our Prime Minister is travelling, but I know the Prime Minister has been in contact with the President in recent times. He has met with him, he has written to him. I spoke to the Foreign Minister on Sunday and I asked that we be formally notified of when the executions would take place, and I've not yet received that formal notification. But we're continuing to make representations via our ambassador, our embassy officials, our consular officials who are on the ground, who are present there.
How would you describe the Indonesian government's behaviour towards the Australian government over this matter?
They have not responded to any of our requests, and there are a number of outstanding requests to which we've still not yet received a response. I'm obviously very dismayed by what has gone on in recent weeks. I'm obviously deeply disturbed at some of the aspects of how this has been handled, and I think the ghastly process that the family have been put through today just underscores how chaotic this has been. I'm very concerned for the family. They deserve respect, and they do deserve to have dignity shown to them at this time of unspeakable grief, but that doesn't seem to have been extended to them at this time.
Chan and Sukumaran's lawyers have, of course, tried everything they can under Indonesian law, domestic law. I'm wondering if there is any last-minute recourse in international law. Does Australia, for example, have any advice that Indonesia is in breach of the International Convention on Torture?
They would be questions for the International Court of Justice to consider, and Indonesia does not recognise the compulsory jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. Australia has asked Indonesia to submit to that jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice so that these questions around the death penalty and the proposed executions could be considered by the International Court of Justice. Indonesia has not responded to our request.
Would that, if Indonesia did submit to that, would that delay things, or would this be a matter for reflection afterwards?
Well, Leigh, they've not responded to our request, so it's a moot point as to how that would proceed. Because Indonesia doesn't recognise the International Court of Justice's compulsory jurisdiction, the only way a question could get before the International Court is if they were to agree to submit to it, and we've not had a response to our request.
What sanctions will Australia take against Indonesia if these executions occur as expected later tonight?
Leigh, as I've said for some time now, I don't intend to focus on the consequences, but of course, should these executions proceed in the manner that I anticipate, of course there'll have to be consequences, but I don't want to go into the details. I'm still focused on ensuring that our ambassador, our consul general can be with the family, support the family, and still make contact with the authorities at the highest levels we can within the Indonesian government.
If these executions take place, and even if they miraculously don't, will the Australian government now make the abolition of the death penalty in the region a top-order foreign policy concern? Because we've been down this path before and the issue does just fade away until the next time there's an Australian on death row, even though there are countless other people executed regularly.
Leigh, this is an issue that Australia has been concerned about for some time, and you will have noted that the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon issued a statement on the weekend calling on Indonesia to not proceed with these executions. We are in a region where a number of countries have the death penalty. It's not just Indonesia, a number of countries do, but a number of them don't use the death penalty now in circumstances particularly involving drug offences, rather looking for other ways to deter and disrupt the trafficking and try and find regional solutions to this scourge. But we will continue to advocate for the death penalty not to be part of the laws of countries in our region. And I think given the exceedingly high profile that these cases have, because it's not just Australian citizens, there are a number of citizens from other countries who Indonesia proposes to have executed by firing squad, I think the issue will become much more high profile, much more significant than it has been. In my recent visit to Europe, I spoke with two foreign ministers who have had either their citizen executed or their citizen is on death row in Indonesia, and we jointly agree that this issue of the death penalty as a way of trying to resolve the drug trafficking through our region must be a priority.